Being consistent is definitely being authentic to your crowd or your brand or whoever you're speaking to, right? Like you got to show yourself. All the cards are out. You're not going to change on these people and flip the script, because once you do, you're going to lose your whole crowd.
Welcome to Theoretically Speaking, hosted by Victoria Herrera and Brent Javier. Produced by Next Theory. From the Philippines to the world, this is an interview series with creative entrepreneurs, taste makers, and change agents. We dissect the journey they took from dream to reality, exchanging stories from the past, motivations in the present, to ideas for the future.
What's up, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. We are here with Theoretically Speaking, of course, and with our esteemed guest. He has been in the creative marketing and design industry for more than 20 years. He started his career as a designer and worked his way up through the ranks of junior art director, senior art director, creative director, and finally, design director. From the many clients and colleagues he's met throughout his career, he has been fortunate to work with many of today's Fortune 500 companies: Nike, Gap, Adidas, Beats by Dre, Moon Eyes, Hot Wheels, and Electronic Arts are a few of the companies he's created experiences for. He has led global teams of as large as 50 to as small as 2. Known to many as one of the pioneers and influencers in many lifestyles, he orchestrates authentic brand experiences. Recently, he not only worked as the global creative director at Illust, the company he founded after leaving Nike in 2009, but he also found global partners for the company while creating a brand known around the world. He enjoys building cars, supporting Bay Area sports, as well as spending as much time with his family as possible when he's not traveling. Let's welcome our good friend, Mark Arcenal. What's up, Mark?
Yo, what's good? Chilling.
So Mark's in San Francisco, I'm in Toronto, and Vicky's in Manila right now. So this is a meeting of, it's a global conference right now we have going on for Theoretically.
That's dope. That's what's up. It's cool.
Yeah, so it really just started as a way for us to, share knowledge with our team. So we wanted to bring in different guests to kind of give learning sessions for our team here in the Philippines. Uh-huh. And then, because we were all in lockdown and we couldn't leave our houses, right?
Yeah. That's the truth.
For a long time. And then as we were journeying together, we were like, this is really good wisdom and just insights and learning that we could bottle up and then put into a podcast. So we decided to turn all our learning sessions into this work of art and, make lemonade out of lemons at our whole situation. It's so different from when we last saw you during your event. So
I know. It's like one thing after another, I'll tell you that, where we're at. I was actually supposed to be with Joe Coy. He said, hey, man, come over to the Philippines. And then I said, actually, I'm going to be there. And I couldn't make it because they canceled my flight because of the volcano, right?
Yeah.
So I came the week after, and they said, you should still probably bring a mask because, the ashes. But then that's when COVID hit, too. So I was, doubling up on masks. It was kind of crazy.
It's a lot of unexpected things coming at you from left and right. And even, again, here in the Philippines, there's a lot going on again. Yeah, it's just that type of world where a lot of things I feel are uncertain. But what we can do, and this is what our message is and what we want to really bring through this podcast, is as creatives, how can you still look at the world and how can you still approach the world? Because who we really want to speak to is people like us, right? Mm-hmm. People who are creating new things, creating brands, creating art, podcasts, music, people who work in our culture. Despite all of these things that may seem like it's never going to end, how do we still stay optimistic about ourselves and our art, right? But before we even get there, we want to first talk about you and your journey, because we want to let people know you as a creative and artist and businessman and how you started and how you got to where you are now today. So if we can take it back, how was it for you first growing up?
Well, for one, I didn't get any toys. I was deprived of toys because my parents worked all day long, and We did have someone watching us, but as far as toys goes, I didn't get toys. My dad kind of gave me like a toolbox. So I started making things, like super random things. I bought like a rocket engines. You light these rockets up and they shoot up in the sky. It's kind of like fireworks. So I used my hammer and I like smashed up the gunpowder and I lit it. I didn't know what would happen, right? You just light it. And basically I burnt all my hair off, my face, my eyebrows, everything was burnt off. And my dad came home and he was like, what the hell happened, right? And I was like, I don't know. I was just like, I mean, you know, I don't play with toys, so I'm just experimenting here, right? So those kind of random things would happen to me all the time. Another one, my dad came home and I took apart all the doorknobs in the house. So imagine coming home.
How old were you?
I was pretty young, maybe like 9 or 10. But they came home and they were like, what the hell happened? I was like, I knew how to take it apart. I just didn't know how to put it back, right? So I guess that was kind of me being a little creative. Yeah.
So is that something you see your son doing also, kind of like taking apart everything in the house?
No, these guys are kind of spoiled, man. I think what happened was because I didn't have toys as a kid, I became the kid as a grown-up. So I have a gazillion things for them to keep their minds busy.
And for yourself now too, right? From not getting those toys, now like you're collaborating with Bear Brick and you've released all kinds of stuff that you probably wish you had when you were a child, maybe?
Yeah,
so
totally.
Revenge buying, but like revenge making.
Yeah, I think that parents and my wife, and they were kind of like, man, this guy's going nuts. You know, like one time I just went crazy, just started buying a bunch of random things. But I think it was my way of making up for things that I didn't have. But at the same time, you know, I definitely, there's one thing that I can tell you, that even though I have, you know, a lot of things, I can get rid of a lot of things and not have anything because something that I'm used to anyway, right? So a lot of friends of mine, I've owned cars that some people say that's their favorite car and that's it, their end all car, right? But for me, it's just a car. It's something that I can have an experience with. And at the end of the day, it's just a car and you can't really take it with you. So it's okay for me to unload these things because not that I don't really keep things like super sentimental, you know, because it's just things.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that you're able to collect things, enjoy it, but you're not attached. Like if it's time to let it go, you just let it go and you continue going on with your life. And I guess really enjoying and playing again like a kid, right? And when it comes to the element of play, how do you feel that connects to your world of branding?
You know, before I was working at Nike, I had my own brand, right? And I was just doing random things, just kind of doing things that I wanted to do. Like if I was into biking, we would do biking things and we would sell biking things, like make things that kind of have to do with biking or cars or whatever, you know, anything that kind of is on topic for us in our brains amongst our friends. And that kind of like carried on as I was going throughout the years before I went to Nike. And then when I finally got to Nike, I was kind of have to focus on why am I doing these things, right? Because at Nike, they kind of teach you can't just do things. You kind of have to do things for a reason. Most places it's like that, right? You got to do things for a reason. But because we were doing things with our passion, it kind of made everything super fun. What I did was take that mentality to Nike and let's just make cool things and make sure it's fun for us first before you think of the dollar sign behind it.
Speaking about Nike and some of your collectibles, I just checked recently your website. It said you had, I think, 632 pairs of shoes. Is that updated or have you gotten rid of some? Has that collection grown?
Well, right now I'm trying to get rid of the whole collection, which is going to take a while. So I have my eldest daughter. She's taking inventory right now. And then we're going to release everything on StockX and Grail. But I still buy shoes. I mean, I just bought a pair of Jordans last week because I can't stop. But, you know, I mean.
Got it. Yeah. You've worked with like a brand from K-Swiss, Nike, of course, G-Shock, Beats by Dre, Hot Wheels, EA Sports, Electronic Arts.
Yeah.
In your process with working with these companies, what have you taken away?
Well, I'll give you two really opposite observations from two different spectrums. So working with brands that you've looked up to, you don't realize how political it is once you get to the brand. You're like, oh man, a dream of mine is to work at Nike, or a dream of mine is to work at EA. Once you get in, you're like, I love this place. This is awesome. First week, right? After 3 weeks, you're going to realize, oh man, you can't just do things. You have to actually do things with some kind of structure. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people that create brands now, they don't really know about this kind of structure. They don't know the process because they're just doing it how I used to do it before I was at Nike, right? So I feel like if you do want to go corporate, I suggest going corporate for a year, going 2 years, 3 years, just to see, right? I mean, there's so much structure once you get to working for a company. Even though you know that you have to work random hours, sometimes you have to work 18 hours, sometimes you work 5 hours, right? But it's all about structure. That's like the biggest key that you don't get when you're starting your own personal brand, right? Because I think you know, but really you have no idea.
For sure. I mean, that's something that even us, when we're building the company, there's things that we think, like, yeah, we have structure. And then when you're executing it, you're like, fuck, we don't, right? Like, there's still things to work on. When it comes to you moving as an artist to developing structure, what was the hardest thing and easiest thing about that?
I think for myself personally, it's a little different because even though before Nike, I was at maybe 4 different advertising agencies, I was learning structure as I had my own brand at the same time. So it's a little different, right? Because when I had my own brand, before I was in like advertising, my dad was like, dude, you should probably get a job versus just doing this, right? And at that time, I had my own business, and it was just making signs for people, making stickers and graphics for making the little websites for people. But I thought that was a good job after college because I was paying for everything, right? I'm like, oh shit, I actually got a little money right now, right? Yeah. But not until I got my first job at an advertising agency, that's when I realized, okay, I'm kind of doing things backwards. Even till when I got partners at Illis, I realized that I was doing things backwards. And you have to realize that you as a person can't do everything. Really, if you're a creative, I don't suggest you doing the books for your company. That's like the biggest mistake because creatives can't process that. They don't work that way. And I'm a creative, so I didn't learn this till the end. I was like, oh man, I thought I had it, but that's why you have your accountant. That's why you have people helping you. It's really difficult. You got that?
Yeah, for sure. I resonate so much. I feel like this talk is for me. This isn't a podcast. This is for Vicky.
Anyone that needs consultation, just hit me up because I can help you guys out.
Actually,
this is experience, right?
This is it. We're just getting free consultation from you. We don't have a podcast. Actually, it's not going to come out. It's never going to come out.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I'm like on podcasts. Like, I feel like I'm doing a podcast every week now these days. It's kind of crazy.
Let's rewind it a little bit before your corporate world. How I know you is through Fat Lace and Illis. John told me about Fat Lace a long time ago, but maybe you can talk to us of how it started through your love of hip hop. And I think that's what you're talking about when you were saying, like, before getting to corporate world, you're just going with your love and with your heart.
Yeah. So before anything ever happened for me, I kind of was just doing things because I love doing things, right? Like, we had blogs before there were blogs. There was a website I went to, and all they would do is, before there was pictures on websites, you guys are so young. There was just hyperlinks, right? And you're like, oh, damn, these guys are linking to the best websites on the web. So I said, you know what? I think I could do this too, but I want to link to the best hip hop sites or the best breakdancing videos or whatever, right? So that's what I would do with Fat Lace. And at that time, I didn't realize it, but I was helping create what Hypebeast is today, right? Because I would hit up my friends around the world. John was one of them. I said, hey, can you blog on my blog? I asked Neek before Neek was antisocial. I said, hey, can you blog on my blog? So he would post up things from Las Vegas. And he was actually one of our photographers at one time. another girlfriend of mine, Jessica. I think you know
Yeah.
her.
Yoshi.
But, yeah, Yoshi. So she was a good friend of mine. She had a clothing brand, so she would blog. I had a whole bunch of random bloggers on the blog and thought that was a cool idea. It just couldn't, like I said, like you can't really do everything on your own because there's some people that are experts at things. And even though you want to be an expert, you just really can't. It's just not enough time for you to do everything. Is that okay? I think
Yeah,
that's cool.
that makes total
Yeah.
sense. I
Yeah.
resonate with you so much. And what we're also seeing, I mean, you know how, especially now with COVID, everything's online.
Yeah.
Do you feel like being online early was a huge advantage for you, especially when you had to move brands online as well?
Yeah, what's funny is the wholesale business, I personally saw it tanking, right? Because we went through two different phases of, I guess, selling to other stores. The first phase was, okay, we were in 350 stores around the globe. And at the time, I was like, oh, shit, man, we're killing it. We're making a ton of money, right? By the second year, I was like, oh, this is cool. We're still maintaining. And I realized that some stores were not paying anymore, right? Like they just stopped paying. And we're like, damn, we just sent this store like $10,000 worth of product, right? And back then you would do like net 30, right?
Right.
And that means basically you pay 30 days after you get your product because hopefully you can sell all this product within 30 days, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that net 30 became net 45 and net 90. And I was like, man, these people are not going to pay us. This is crazy. So that's when I kind of decided, and, it was our mistake, but at the same time, you have a lot of trust in these guys because they're selling your product. So we got, I think it was about $350,000 in outstanding bills, and we never saw that money ever again. And
That's crazy.
that's wholesale price. It was just one of those things where, okay, I'm never going to do wholesale again because I don't want that to happen again. So we had another opportunity to do wholesale, but I just kind of gave up on it because we were doing so well online and people knew you can only get it on illis.com. But there's fake stuff out there, but I didn't mind because it was just fake stickers. And, fake stickers is just like free advertising.
Wow. You made it when like someone rips you off.
Yeah, man, there's like 1,000 pages on eBay of fake stickers. I'm like, man, that's a lot. I'm not going to talk to all these guys.
Yeah. So when it comes to the world of digital or tech, how do you see that changing the whole world of branding and design, in your opinion?
I feel like some days I'm like way too old school, the way my thinking is, but having a team that's young, like you guys, it really helps me realize, oh shit, we got to start getting on this TikTok shit. Right.
Yeah, right.
But, it's so crazy. But, if my daughter is on something that I have no idea what it is, that means I'm kind of like, I'm like out of it, way out of it. Right. But if I'm like on the pulse of like what she's into, then I understand that they're moving, right? Like if they're saying, oh man, no one's really using Instagram, Dad. I mean, they only use it for, this and that, and nobody's using Facebook, Dad. I'm like, really? No one's, I mean, I stopped using Facebook 3 years ago, but it looks like everyone thinks I'm on it because I just link it from my Instagram. So everyone's, dude, I've gotten like job offers on Facebook, and I look, it was like 2 years ago, and they're like, dude, where were you? I'm like, well, first of all, I don't use Facebook. I just kind of like let it run. But, like kids these days, they're moving, right? They're moving fast. And I think even though there's no way to monetize TikTok, there's definitely ways to get kids' attention on it, whether through sponsorships or whatever.
Back in 2013, actually, one of the stores that was selling Illust was Armada, with me, Louis, and Sarah, of course. And I looked back at an interview that we had with you, and you had a quote there where you said, I just want to stick to what I know and keep it simple. What does that mean to you when, just in your process, whenever you're working on a project?
For me personally, I think, like, for example, we have a really, 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 I mean, this is like my dream project because I've never done anything like this before. I have a project coming out and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to jinx it, but I know it's coming out. But for me to say that is basically saying, okay, I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel with Illis because I know what Illis is about, right? Like, I'm not going to try and start selling violins, right? Or guitars, right? Because that's just not who we are. But
Really? Just kidding.
no, not right now. But I mean, shoot, if I end up picking up a guitar and start playing and I start feeling it, then maybe. But if I'm into it or the team is into it, then we're really going to go push for that. We're not going to try and force things that's not us, you know? That's basically what that means.
What do you think is up next for like street style, or what's the next move for streetwear?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I know it's not. No, I don't want to say it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's going in so many different directions, whether it's rappers that I don't understand. To be honest, it's just a super wide, I guess, question to ask because I don't have an answer for it. It's kind of weird.
It's also something that we've been looking at because now that, the internet from before when it was only certain sites putting out stuff and certain creators, now it's kind of like
everyone.
And to the point where you're not sure if there's any, like there's nothing to control. Like it's whatever rules work for that person, it works.
Yeah. It's
hard to say like, oh, that qualifies or not, because sometimes they'll reinvent the whole thing and make it something that qualifies, right? So it's interesting to watch. But just going back to what you said, what I'm really picking up from this conversation is that you still stuck to who you are in terms of your identity as Mark. If it makes sense to you and your team, it's something that you're going to go in that direction. Was there ever a time or ever a story you can tell us where you didn't listen to your own intuition and you didn't stick to your identity and you know who you are? How was that experience?
Let's just say it happened. Okay. Right? And I knew deep down inside I did not want this to happen this way. But at the same time, I wanted to see what would happen if we did it. Right?
Oh.
Would it backfire? Who knows? I mean, we spent $10,000 on a photo shoot, and then you just see what happens. Right? And you're like, fuck, I knew that shit would happen. But you would not have known if you didn't try, right? So whether you're trying to capture a new audience or what, you have to kind of try these things out. Even though you know that's not you, that's not, oh man, that's not Illis at all. That's not our branding. We've never done this type of photo shoot in the past. Why are we doing this now? But we have a new team. We're trying to do something different. We don't know the results. Let's just see what happens, right? And then when results happen, you're just like, damn, you just spent a shit ton of money and it didn't do well. But I don't know whose fault that is. I wouldn't say it's anybody's fault. I think it's just us trying to try something different. Because we are an older brand, we have to definitely try. Because when you think of even Supreme's going through like growing pains right now because they sold their brand and their customers are like, fuck you guys are sold out already, right? Like no one's buying Supreme. It's not selling out anymore. But at the same time, if you think about it, even the younger kids don't know this, right? The new customers of Supreme are like, man, I love Supreme. It's a brand new brand for me. And it seems like every kid in my high school is into this. But that kid doesn't understand that, shit, once it reached the high schools, it's already dead, right? But really, is it dead? I don't know. Nobody really knows because it won't die to me personally because you'll always have that new fan base. And that's what us as a brand, as an older brand, is trying to do. You know, you have to kind of experiment. But in the beginning, I would never experiment because I knew my brand, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that there's also the element of knowing yourself, but being willing to at least experiment, at least being open.
You have to be open. You have to be open. I mean, I wouldn't have gone to the Philippines, right? Like my brand would never have gone to the Philippines until John was like, dude, you should probably bring the brand to the Philippines. I'm like, really? I've never been there in a long time. Let me go to the Philippines. I went to the Philippines. I'm like, wow, Philippines has changed. This is awesome. Let's get in the Philippines right now, right? This was like I don't know, a long
Sure.
time ago. And
All right.
because we did it, that's what, it kind of helped our brand out.
Right. So let's go there. Let's talk about you coming to the Philippines and the journey there. I know you're definitely moving a lot of work as well here to the Philippines. How was that thought process for you? When you flew here and saw it differently, what was going on in your mind as opposed to how things were happening in America?
Well, I think at the time, before Illis kind of really, really kicked off, because I was looking for an option, right? Okay, so we're really big in Japan right now, right? In my head. Okay, and we're really growing in like Australia, and we're starting to grow in the UK in my head. But we're really not that big in the UK. But in my head, I thought we were. And then I was like, we should probably do something in the Philippines because we are kind of Filipinos, right? And we don't really fuck with that Philippines right now. So then, John was blogging at the time. He goes, you really should come to the Philippines. I'm like, okay. So then it kind of changed my mindset when I got there because I was like, whoa, this is totally different from when I went here in 2001, right? Like it's day and night already, right? Like, and every year since I've been back, it's completely changed. And like every year is changing, right? It's like really moving fast. It's almost like Japan. And Japan before was my favorite place to go. I go to Japan 5 times a year, right? And now I feel like I'm going to Philippines way more than Japan nowadays. Because I think I've seen it and I've done it and I've had business partners over there. And I don't know, Philippines is really like, for me personally, I love it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
What about the Philippines do you love?
Oh no, I mean it's not just like I really don't go out much anymore when I go there. It's just more like the friendships that I have there, and everyone I've met kind of has a brand, right? And they're all kind of pushing to try and be a brand, not only brand but try to be someone. You come to the U.S. and fuck, there's so many lazy kids here, and nobody's trying to be nothing, right? They just want to floss. And I think there's a huge difference with flossing and pushing, right? There really is. You see, there are people in LA. A lot of people, my friends own brands, but a lot of the kids not kids, but people that I know, they just like to floss. Completely different.
So when it comes to different creatives here in the Philippines, have you thought about collaborating with any local artists or designers that you've met while you were here?
Yeah, for sure. I'm working with Quix on something. I don't know if you guys know Quix.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. And Don't Blame the Kids, DBK. I've been talking to these guys for a while. I met them at the Manila Grey concert in the Palace, I think they call it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went to the concert there, and I don't know, I met them there, and those guys were super cool. And I said, hey man, maybe we should work on something, and they were stoked. I don't know if they knew I was going to ask that, but I really like their work, so I hope we can work together. We are working. We're just trying to figure out when.
Yeah. When it comes to people you collaborate with, what are you looking for exactly in their energy or work?
Well, I only want to collaborate with the people that I think really, really understand their brand themselves, and people that have like lots of motivation. There's tons of brands, there's a million brands, but I think at the time, like if we're going to work with the Simpsons, then I'm like, oh shit, let's work on the Simpsons stuff because that's going to be super cool. Because these guys have done it, and I think we could do a little better. But once you get to the artwork, you realize, oh man, I can't really go that crazy because they have so many restrictions. But when you do work with like companies that don't really care, and as long as it's PC, then that's when like both the magic works on both ends, because people are super pumped on the creative and stuff like that. Like for example, Joe Coy.
Right.
I've been trying to work with Joe for a long time, and he knows that we've been trying to work together, but we really didn't come up with this idea. We came up with the idea, but we didn't really work on it.
Yeah.
And this is just on text messages and FaceTime, because he doesn't like talking on the phone. He just wants to FaceTime you the whole time. But things like that,
every time he talks.
Oh, it's only FaceTime. That's it. You only get FaceTime with Joe.
Does he tell jokes while he's talking to you on the phone?
Yeah. He
That's cool.
tells
That'd be
jokes
interesting.
pretty much the entire time you're with him. Yeah,
That's
it's fun.
hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, we got that collab with Joke, and I think that wouldn't have happened if he was a dick, right? Or if I was a dick, he wouldn't want to work with me. So, as long as we're cool and everyone's cool, then that's a good opportunity. I mean, there's an opportunity to work with me. I'm open to everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the same sense that you just want to feel their vibe, and if it's good energy and you feel like, yeah, it's just also good conversation, or it feels like there's a flow, that's definitely someone or a company that also we would be attracted to working with. They're like, oh, it's just good energy, and there's just something there. You can't articulate it, or you can't, put your finger on it, but they're like, I think we should move here. And it's just a feeling, right? All right. So going back to the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about keeping creativity alive during this whole time, this world right now that we're living in. Was there something you realized about yourself as a creative during this whole time?
This is how I can answer that. Because I'm on a plane, before this whole thing started, I feel like I was on a plane every week, right? I never really got to take a step back and realize what's moving and like what our brand is doing at this moment in time, or where it is at this moment in time, and where every other brand is at this moment in time. I think that long pause kind of gave everyone that time to digest what their issues are with their brand, right? And hopefully they can figure out how to get ahead. Everyone's just trying to figure out their next steps, right? Because if you think about everyone that took a pause, and this is the whole globe, we all took a pause, right? And we had our spring and our summer dropping. Everyone had the same issue, right? Like whether it was already printed or produced or whatever, none of that shit matters, right? None of it mattered, right? Like now none of that stuff matters. Like you could still drop your summer now and it might matter, but none of that stuff matters because so much things were happening at the time. Fuck, I don't want to drop this right now. There's too many crazy things, right? Right. And I feel like for us, we were lucky that our printers work very fast and we didn't get into that situation where we have thousands of dollars just sitting there. What can we do about this, right? So you just have to kind of react and we kind of worked our way through this maze and came up with some other ideas of not just marketing. That's what brands are. We're just trying to make money and trying to market and trying to figure out how to make the world look cool. That's what brands are. But how can we do this with a positive spin to it? And I think that was our biggest dilemma. I think that was everyone's biggest dilemma, right? We're still doing the same thing, trying to work with someone that helps everyone, not just us, because we're trying to make $50 today, right? Like we're trying to work with people that can kind of change this whole perspective of where we're at this moment in time, right? Like, because I think whether you're in the Philippines or you're here, I feel like we all kind of go through the same kind of random things. We just have to figure out not just how to sell product. We have to sell it in a very positive way. You got to put a positive spin to it. It's not just selling now, which is good. I think everyone can relate and everyone grew from this.
I want to ask Mark, what's your daily routine looking like nowadays? Is it kind of open now in the US to go out and do whatever you want? Are offices open, or is everyone still working at home?
I haven't every day, even since the lockdown, I go to the office because in the office it's just myself. It's a way for me to escape from not only like the craziness of my house because my kids are there, right? But it's a way for me to just kind of meditate. Most of the day, I'm basically working the entire day because by the time it's my 6 p.m., that's when Manila wakes up, and I'm in meetings with them till about 1 or 2 a.m. So I'm working like constantly. I feel like my schedule has been like this all my life, but because I've gotten older, I've thrown in a nap in the middle of this random day. But for me, it hasn't changed much because I'm still kind of grinding every day.
When it comes to working with your teams in America and in different parts of the world, what are your strategies to making that effective for you?
I think trust is the number one thing, because I've given up a lot of my, I guess, ownership of the brand to my partners. And I feel like, okay, now that my partners have this ownership, they've said, they've worked with me and they've said, hey, Mark, you got to let us figure it out for you, because it's too much, there's too much information. We know that what we're good at and we know what you're good at. Right. And so then I think that's where I kind of have to like swallow that pride kind of sort of thing. You're in that moment where, damn, I know I'm not the best at this, so I'll definitely hand this off because it's not me, right? But things that I really am passionate about, like the marketing side, or I love making websites though, but they won't let me touch it. But that's totally fine, like I just have to accept it. And even though I know I could still edit and do all that stuff, but it's cool. They just want me to be creative. And I think being creative and making connections and doing these really cool collaborations with friends of mine that I've grown up with, that's all they could ask,
Yeah. So, Mark, we need a website.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, shall I ask? Okay. When it comes to, again, going back to doing what you love and putting your heart back into your passion and everything, what advice would you give to that up-and-coming creative?
Here's what I do, make mood boards, trying to figure out like your style. And once you figure out your style, just kind of keep that style going. You can't really, it's difficult to have a brand that just keeps changing their style, right? Like I think it's okay to change your logos up and be different, but being a mod, going from mod to like punk to rock to hip hop, you're just going to steer your crowd away from you because you're not being consistent. And to me, consistency is like the number one thing with having a brand.
Do you feel like that also goes back to the word authenticity?
Yeah, for sure. Being consistent is definitely being authentic to your crowd or your brand or whoever you're speaking to, right? Like you got to show yourself. All the cards are out. You're not going to change on these people and flip the script, because once you do, you're going to lose your whole crowd.
It goes back again to trust, right? Like they're trusting you with this path, and then suddenly if you switch it on them, they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's a weird relationship.
Question I wanted to ask Mark is, you still actively blog, right?
Yeah, I do.
Where do you think blogging is going in the future? Because especially with, everyone being stuck at home. And if you could, I just want to personally know, what blogs do you visit so I can just give them a check and maybe read up on them?
Yeah. Well, mainly I'm on the news mostly. I mean, I check out car blogs often, and I'm actually on a lot of Japanese sites just because I know style kind of starts from there. Personally, I think.
Can you expand that? Style starts from Japan?
Well, this is what my thinking is. I think a lot of the styles in the U.S. Start in Japan, whether it's just knowing or them just being very fashion forward, whether it's like you're going to dress like you're gardening every day, right? Like everyone's dressing like they're gardening, right? But if you think about it, that was years ago in Japan, right? Like I'm like, oh my God, Cindy, you got to check out this style. I love it. It's like a bunch of layers. They look like they're, whether it's Uggs or whatever, but I think they've had it down for a lot of years now, right? And that's why I used to go to Japan. I mean, I still go to Japan a lot, but not as much. I mean, maybe twice a year, but they're on top of their game as far as fashion goes.
They're not afraid to try stuff, right? And
no, not at all.
They have a great platform to, whenever a Japanese person puts it on, makes you take notice a little bit, like subconscious, but it's just like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can wear overalls or, whatever.
Yeah. I think also, like, a few of my friends own, like, they've started like the biggest brands in Japan, and being around them, you kind of like take note every time you're with them, because you're, shit, what's Hiroshi wearing today? Why is he wearing this? Why is he wearing these denim pants that don't really, I wouldn't see myself in it, but there's a reason why he's wearing it, right? Because he's basically starting the trends over there, whether it's him, whether it's Nigo or Takizawa from Neighborhood. Like, these guys all kind of set the tone for the year, but these guys are setting the tone, I don't know, like in a year and a half before. You just have to catch it.
Right. What I was going to talk about in related to authenticity, and I love that you're talking about Japan, because I'm kind of learning that they're just kind of being who they are, and they're just putting it out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's what I was going to talk about earlier. I feel like sometimes, because there's so much pressure on the internet for things to take off and become viral and become trendy right away, that it's hard to find that authenticity, because at the same time you're matched with that pressure for numbers.
Yep.
So
yeah,
what advice would you give to someone who's navigating those two worlds?
I wouldn't change. I mean, basically, I wouldn't trend now. I wouldn't jump on any trend that is happening right now, because that means you're way too late, right? Like, by the time you get it out, it's already done. You know, that's like saying fast fashion, right? And that's like a voodoo word, but at the same time, those guys have made billions because they're doing what they're doing. They're basically knocking off other super expensive brands, right? But streetwear has become kind of fast fashion-ish, right? Whether it's through the rappers or whoever. But me personally, I still kind of, I don't know, I kind of go by my own path still, you know, and hopefully people dig it, because the people I'm around in Japan, I'm not following them, but I'm actually taking notes. Oh, this is their trend, so I'm going to kind of create my version of that. I can give you an example if you want. Like, Neighborhood, they were very, very anarchy for a while. They've changed their script, but they've done it in a very organic way, and now they're, you know, very much outdoors style, which is dope, because I love the outdoors, and everyone I know in California loves the outdoors, and it's become that trend, and now everyone's all about it, right? And I think we're lucky that we're dropping lines and we're dropping product that's very much caters to that, right? But at the same time, it's still us, the way we do our thing.
All right, cool. Yeah, I just want to say thanks again, Mark, for the time. We really appreciate the insights. Hope we can stay in touch and work together in the future.
Yeah.
Again, thank you again.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's hang out when I'm in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Or when you get there and I'll get there.
Thanks again, Mark, for your time. Last time we saw you was at your Illest event here in the Philippines, and we're looking forward to seeing more of your brand's launch, whether it be Fat Lace or Illest. Your female line as well, called Heartbreaks, that's also coming out. So we're really excited about all the different projects you're working on, it being here in the Philippines and global as well. And once again, thank you for your time and your wisdom and your insight here on Theoretically Speaking.
Sweet.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
All right. Take care of yourself,
Appreciate
Mark.
it.
Bye, guys. Later.
Bye. Later.
Peace.
And that was Mark Arcenal for Theoretically Speaking. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, please share it with a friend and share it on social media. Take a screenshot and post it on IG stories and tag us at Next Theory, at Victoria_Herrera, and at Brent Javier. See you next week.